Ukrainian law at ease.
Hello, everyone. You are listening to Ukrainian Law at Ease, a podcast about law and legal stuff in Ukraine. My name is Marichka, and I'm the lawyer and the hostess of this podcast. Traditionally, I produce episodes in Ukrainian, but since recently I have decided to speak up in English as well. I'm sure that Ukraine is a very attractive destination to foreigners, and I bet they want to learn about law in Ukraine a little bit more. So go and check out the first episode in English titled Introduction to Ukrainian Law. The actual consecutive number of episode is 13, which is available on SoundCloud, Castbox, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Now let's get to the this episode itself. I really want to tell you about taxes and taxation in Ukraine. And honestly, since anyone can talk hours about taxes, I have decided to start a series of episodes dedicated to the topic of taxes and taxation in Ukraine. So, in this episode, which is, by the way, the second episode in English and 16th overall, I will mainly focus on such type of tax as da-da-da-da-dum, individual income tax. Um, Honestly, I have no idea why I am so excited, but if it is contagious, I hope you'll get some portion of excitement while listening to this episode too. Before we start to talk about the topic itself, there is a teeny tiny disclaimer, as usual. Neither this episode nor the podcast in general shall be treated and perceived as legal advice or consultation. Anything you hear shall be further applied and executed on your own decision and risk. The information furnished is of educational purpose only. Should you have any request for legal help, please contact your lawyer. All right. Let's finally get back to the point and start with some general information about taxes that might be useful and I hope interesting for you. I remember one of my law school lecturers used to say that first of all, one shall learn the definitions. All right. I sincerely hope that all of you know what taxes are, or at least you heard the word taxes. But in case you haven't, there is a great definition of taxes on Investopedia resource. It is a very general one, so I believe it is applicable to any country and any jurisdiction you are in or reside at. So, taxes are involuntary fees levied on individuals or corporations and enforced by a government entity, whether local, regional, or national, in order to finance government activities. In other and simple words, taxes collected are used for the betterment of the economy and all living in it. For the public school your kids go to, for the police that should protect you, for the courts that should do justice, for people who are less fortunate, and etc., on and on. This is not an exhaustive list of things and phenomena the taxes are actually collected for. In Ukraine, all taxes are divided into two groups, um, nationwide and local. Nationwide taxes are applicable to each and every person and entity despite of their location and residence within Ukraine. Local taxes, on the other hand, are levied on taxpayers by local councils on specific territory. Also, such taxes may vary by rate and purpose they are collected for. Here are some examples of both groups of taxes so you can better understand what I'm talking about. Nationwide taxes are, for example, value added tax or VAT, individual income tax, the one I'm going to tell you about in this episode, land tax, corporate income tax, military tax. Local taxes are the following: municipal taxes, tourist taxes, even local symbol use taxes, and some others. Both lists of examples of such taxes, both nationwide and local, are not exhaustive. Um, Also, taxes in Ukraine may be classified as direct and indirect taxes. What do I mean by this? Direct taxes are imposed directly on income and property. On the other hand, indirect taxes are taxes on goods and services, which are set in the form of a surcharge on the price or tariff. And usually they are paid by customers when they are, for example, buying some goods or receiving the services. And after that, these money basically are transferred to the budget as taxes by sellers or less often by producers of these goods and services. Individual income tax is a vivid example of a direct tax because it's levied on the income directly of the person when, for example, VAT, a value added tax, is an example of indirect tax. All the aforementioned types of taxes may be levied on natural persons, private entrepreneurs, and legal entities. However, there are certain types of taxes that are applicable only to natural persons. Probably the most popular of them is individual income tax. So, individual income tax, also known as personal income tax, or how we call it in Ukraine, податок на доходи фізичних осіб, is a tax that is imposed on the income of Ukrainian citizens and other individuals living in the country. It should be noted that it is the residence, not nationality of the person, that governs the taxation of such person's incomes. A little off topic, so you can better understand what is residency and why it is important to establish the types of income the person shall pay taxes for. A resident, this is in the context of the tax code of Ukraine. A resident is a natural person who has a place of residence in Ukraine. If a natural person also resides in a foreign country, such person is considered a resident if such person has a permanent residence in Ukraine. If a person also has a permanent residence in a foreign country, such person is considered a resident if such person or individual has closer personal or economic ties, which is also known as center of vital interest in Ukraine. If the state, here I mean the country, in which the individual has a center of vital interests cannot be determined, or if the individual does not have a permanent residence in any of the countries, such person shall be considered a resident if he or she stays in Ukraine for at least 183 days, including the day of arrival and departure, during the period or periods of the tax year. I know it may sound complicated, but believe me, I try to simplify it as much as possible. Should you need to get it better, I recommend you to rewind and listen to this explanation one more time. All other individuals that were not listed in this explanation above shall be considered to be non-residents. In this respect, Ukrainian residents should pay the tax on incomes of Ukrainian and foreign origin. So, yeah, all the foreign freelance activities, offshore transactions, and dividends allocation, luxurious cars and mansions purchased abroad, and so on, are subject to taxation in Ukraine. while non-residents must pay Ukrainian income tax on the incomes of Ukrainian origin only. So basically, anything non-residents earn in other countries shall be taxed by laws and rules of that country. If they earn anything in Ukraine, get the income here, then this income shall be taxed by the rules of Ukrainian tax code and other laws. So what income is actually taxed? The answer is almost every income, of course. For example, the most common is a salary. Every employee pays the individual income tax at the rate of 18% from the salary. In addition to that, employee salary is also taxed with a military tax of the fixed rate, 1.5%. Altogether, every month, employees' remuneration at work is deducted for 19.5% of the taxes. You may ask, what are the other examples of income that is taxed with individual income tax? I will tell you, such examples are income received as a result of rent. For example, you own an apartment and you would like to find some people who would like to live there. Those people are going to pay you rent for living in your apartment, and this income in the form of rent payment shall be taxed by the individual income tax. Another example are state scholarships, lottery prizes, in some cases, inheritance, deposits, dividends, royalty, car selling, and I can go on and on with the list of examples. So basically, any of your income shall be taxed before you can use or dispose of it. For the vast majority of taxpayers, and in the vast majority of cases, the individual income tax rate since 2016 is 18%. So, as I already said, the mentioned the example with the salary. This is the classical example when the most general rate of individual income tax is used, 18%. However, of course, there are exceptions from this rule in respect of type of income, rate, and whether this income is taxed or not. For example, gifts, if their value does not exceed 25% of the minimum wage set for a particular year in Ukraine, except for cash payments in any amount, are not taxed. For this period of time, for this year, the minimum wage in Ukraine is 6,000 hryvnias. So 25% of 6,000 is 1,500 hryvnias. Therefore, if gift its value actually does not exceed this amount, it is not taxed in accordance with the tax code of Ukraine. Another example, another exception: income from the sale of a house or apartment, as well as land plot, not more than once during the reporting year, and provided that such property is owned by the taxpayer for more than 3 years, is not taxed as well. Um, Income from the sale or exchange of movable property, for example, a car, it is the movable property, is taxed at rate of 5%. However, here is exception of from exception. However, if income uh, income from the sale or exchange during the reporting year of one of the object of movable property is not taxed. So see, it may sound a little bit complicated, but when you get it once, you will not be mistaken when basically counting how much you have to pay taxes in Ukraine when you're deciding to sell some property. And one more interesting exception is that, well, as a rule, inheritance is taxed at rate of 0%. However, inheritance received by any heir from a non-resident testator and any object of inheritance inherited by a non-resident heir is taxed at rate of 18%. So, to sum it up, in Ukraine, individual income tax is collected from almost any income you get. Individual income tax is a nationwide and direct tax. Generally, every person shall pay 18% of tax from his or her income, regardless of certain exceptions that are stipulated in law. And I have shared information about some of such exceptions earlier in this episode. So probably you would like to rewind it as well and listen to it again. Should you enjoy and find this information interesting, please subscribe to my podcast, push like button next to the episodes, and share it with your friends, family, colleagues, and whoever you think might find it interesting and fun as well. You can find Ukrainian Law at Is on SoundCloud, Castbox, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And I will make sure that you get to listen to more such episodes that make law easier and exciting. So, bye bye, and you'll hear from me very soon.